so I am here on my Microsoft Canvas because I couldn't get that into Microsoft PowerPoint. There's no way. This table is massive. So what I was saying is that I'll give the level of clarity, the definition, the rule, the opposite, the example 1, 2, 3, 4. There isn't 4 examples for each and every single one of these. It says فَالظَّاهِرُ اسم لكل كلام ظهر المراد به للسامع بنفس السماع. So that's the definition of Zahir. So Zahir is a word which the listener understands its meaning by merely listening to it without any reflection or contemplation. So this is what it means. So I'm just going to zoom in. I'll just write the answers one by one. So Zahir, the definition of Zahir. Okay, so Zahir is a word which the listener understands just by listening without thinking about it, without reflecting on it. So the rule is that it is wajib to act upon it, whether it is am or khas, with the possibility that another meaning can be intended. So you have to act upon it. So it's wajib to act upon it with the possibility that another meaning can be intended, because this is the least level of clarity. So it's clear, but something else could be meant. So with the possibility that another meaning, whether it is am, whether that statement is am or khas, it doesn't matter. The ruling is the same. So for example, acting on a majaz whose literal meaning can be intended. Okay, so when we mean that the possibility of another meaning being intended, we do mean umum al-majaz, because in umum al-majaz, you can actually have both meaning being intended. We consider it to be one because the hakika meaning is part of the majaz, but it's basically two. It's literally two, but it's actually metaphorically one. So if I just say it again, so the definition of Zahir is a word which the listener understands just by listening without reflecting on it, and it is wajib to act upon it with the possibility that another meaning can be meant, whether it is a am or khas statement. Opposite to Zahir is Khafi. Okay, now we're gonna be getting on to the examples. The first examples, وَأَحَلَّلَ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَا. So that's in the textbook, in the pink highlightings. And Allah Azza wa Jal has made bay halal and has made riba haram. In reality, to move forward, we actually need to know the definitions and the rule for nas. So I'll just do that now. So what is nas? Is the purpose for which the speech has been brought. Definition of nas is the purpose for which the speech has been brought. The rule is actually the same as Zahir, so it's easy. Opposite to Nas is Mushkil. Okay, so the example 1, وَأَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَا. This statement is clear on the fact that bay' is halal. Okay, the statement is Zahir on bay' being halal and riba being haram. Okay, what about nas? So nas is the purpose for which something is said. So it is nas because the purpose of this verse is to show the difference between bay' and riba, because the mushrikun, they thought it's the same thing, so it doesn't matter if we do riba or if we do sale and trade normally, it won't change anything. But the Quran has revealed this verse not because it just wanted only to say that bay' and riba are halal or haram, but specifically to say that no guys, these are two different things. Zahir and Nas, they do go hand in hand. Mufassar and Muhkam also go hand in hand, and also the other fours are like that. That's why learning them in combination is quite useful. Okay, so the second example is وَأَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَا. And Allah Azza wa Jal has made bay halal and has made riba haram. So this was to refute the statement إِنَّمَا الْبَيْعُ مِثْلُ الرِّبَا. So the mushrikeen, they said that trade is just like usury, is just like interest, but Allah Azza wa Jalla revealed this verse to say that no, this is not the case. So this verse is Nas on the purpose to show that this the bay' and riba is different. But the verse is Zahir on the fact that bay is halal and riba is haram. Like, you don't have to think about, like, you just know it by hearing it, what is halal and haram. But you just need a little bit more thinking to understand that what the verse is actually trying to say is that these two things are different. So now the next example is on page 52. So فَانْكِحُوا مَا طَابَ لَكُم مِّنَ النِّسَاءِ مَثْنَى وَثُلَاثَ وَرُبَاعَ. So marry what pleases you from the woman in 2s, 3s, or 4. So the Zahir is so the verse is Zahir. The verse is clear on the permissibility of marriage. So Zahir on the permissibility of marrying multiple wives, or even one. So what's Nas? So what's the purpose of this verse? So is Nas on the number, because it is.
How is Zahir not clear though? Like, it's a statement that's saying you can marry multiple wives.
It is clear, but can it be even more clearer? Yes, it can. So the next level of clarity is Nas. Then you level up again and you have Mufassar. You level up again and you have Muhkam.
Is Nas just gonna say the number, which makes it more clear than Zahir, which is just giving multiple?
Because if Allah says marry whichever woman you like, that's fine. But how many women can I get married to? That's still a question you're gonna have in it. So Nas is gonna tell you that. So Nas on the number, because it is explaining how many. So that would be 1, 2, 3, up to a maximum of 4. Okay, so the next example. لا جناح عليكم إن طلقتم النساء ما لم تمسوهن أو تفريضوا لهن. So there is nothing on you, there's no harm on you if you have given divorce to women that you have not had intercourse with, or you have not stipulated a mahar for. Okay, so this is Zahir. What is clear in this verse? What is absolutely clear in this verse is that it is allowing divorce. This verse is Zahir on allowing divorce for which type of woman? For lam tamassuhunna, for women. So it is allowing to divorce women that are virgin, basically. And it is also Zahir. Okay, so it's Zahir on allowing women to be divorced even though they're virgins, and is also Zahir on allowing nikah without mahar, without specifying mahar. By specifying, I mean like the husband and the wife, they didn't actually mention what mahar they wanted. So what is this verse?
But how is the first one not clear?
What do you mean?
The first part, the divorce of a virgin.
That is clear, in fact.
Yeah, so you can't make that more clear.
Okay, let's see what the Nas says. So this verse is actually Nas in explaining the rule regarding a woman who has been given talaq before dukhul. So remember, Nas is the purpose of you saying something. Okay? Zahir is a word which the listener understands just by listening without reflecting on it. Okay? Nas is the purpose for which the speech has been brought. Is the main reason why you're saying something. So when Allah says that these women, there's no harm if you divorce them, it's fine. What's he trying to say? He's actually giving a rule. So this is Nas in terms of explaining the rule regarding a woman pre-dukhul, who's basically pre-dukhul, and no musamma. So musamma meaning no, she got no mahr mentioned for her. So actually this type of woman, if she gets divorced, she would receive mut'a. I mean, that's not part of this, but I'm saying. Okay, the fourth and the last example, inshallah ta'ala, that is man malaka dha rahimin muharramun minhu ataqa alayhi. Whoever comes into possession of, I think it's rahima mahram minhu, yeah. Whoever comes into the possession of a mahram relative, then he is free. So the mahram person is free. Okay, so what is absolutely clear when you just hear this statement? So it is Zahir. It is Zahir on owning the blood relatives. So when you own blood relatives, they're gonna be free. So when you buy one, buying your relatives. So if they do become slaves and you end up purchasing them, they are gonna be free because you can't own your your relatives. You are, I don't you, but what I meant is the relative. So then, what's the purpose of this text? Why are we saying this? Why have I said this? Well, why has the Prophet mentioned that hadith? So the purpose is to free blood relatives. The purpose is to show that blood relatives will be free if you own them, which basically means that you cannot own relatives. You can buy them to free them, but you can't own them. That's not possible. Okay, so now we can move on to the next one, which is Mufassar. Okay, so the definition of Mufassar is kind of long. The example for Mufassar is actually on page 56. So the definition of Mufassar is something clear from the expression by an explanation of the speaker, by which tawil and takhsis are not needed. Okay, so let's write this down. So something. So this means something clear from the expression. Something clear from the expression via an explanation. Via an explanation of the speaker. Via which ta'wil. So because of this explanation, ta'wil and takhsis you can't do. You can't do these two things. Okay, so remember when we did the mushtarak, we were talking about mufassar. Do you remember? We were saying that when the speaker he specifies what he's on about, then you don't do ta'wil because we know that the statement is clear. So you can't interpret what he's trying to say. You just act on what he said because it's clear, like he said it himself. Takhsis is to specify things, is to restrict things. So we don't restrict them if it's a mufassir statement. There's no need for that because this statement is already very clear on its own. So muhkam is something that, okay, mufassir is some kind of statement that increases clarity, is the highest level of clarity that you can have. There's something that increases in clarity beyond the mufassir. And it is not possible to contradict it at all. Okay, so what's the rule? The rule is that it is compulsory to act upon it without any doubt. It is compulsory to act upon it without any doubt. Actually, the rule for muhkam is same as the zahir one. The opposite, mufassar, is opposite to mujmal, and we've already came across the term mujmal before. So when you need clarification of amounts and things like that, that would be a mujmal, for example. And then the opposite to muhkam, you have the mutashabih statement. So the first example is فَسَجَدَ الْمَلَائِكَةُ, page 56. So فَسَجَدَ الْمَلَائِكَةُ كُلُّهُمْ أَجْمَعُونَ. The word angels is Zahir in being general. Al-Malaika is Zahir to mean angels. So I mean it's clear that the angels are meant, but it has the possibility of takhsis. But you can do takhsis with it. Takhsis meaning you can exclude some angels and not the other. So the word kulluhum implies that there is no takhsis because all of the angels are doing sajda. So all of them are included. So it is absolutely clear that it is all of the angels. However, there is the possibility of how they did sajda still. So then the possibility of how they did sajda is expiated by the word ajma'u, is expiated, doesn't make sense, is gotten rid of by using the word ajma'un, which means all of the angels together. So they did sajda at the same time. So the question of even how they might have done sajda is also answered. So they did sajda, all of them all together. So therefore, this is a mufassar statement. So the next example is, so when a person says, I married a person for 1 month in lieu of this mahr. And this is still on page 56. تزوجت فلانة شهرا بكذا. Page 56. So I married he's saying I married is Zahir on the fact that he did do nikah. So is Zahir on nikah. And it's clear also in explaining the month. Okay, so when you do have a nikah, there might be the question of, okay, so what kind of marriage it is. Because if you just say nikah, we won't know whether it's nikah muta or not. But because he said he specified a month, the word shahran, he specified a month, indicates, well, it clarifies the meaning more. Clarifies further. So we know that this is actually a nikah muta, so it's actually haram. Had he said that I just married a woman, you know, it could be halal, it could be haram, but because he said for a month, it's definitely haram. So this is mufassar. The word shahran has clarified the possible meaning it could have had. So the next example of mufassar, and that's the last example of mufassar, is when someone says, I owe £1,000. I owe 1,000. So alayya alfun on page 57. Page 57, alayya alfun. I owe 1,000, and this is Zahir on the fact that he is confessing to a debt. And he is making incumbent on himself he's making part on himself the currency of that town, because he didn't say 1,000. He didn't say what the currency was, but because he lives in that city, we would assume it to be the currency of that town. He says I owe 1,000. The assumption is currency of the town. But if he were to say from the currency of this certain town, so if he started adding that clause to it, then it would be mufassar, because now you know that the type of currency that he wants is not pounds, is euros, for example, because he said it himself. So the currency of the town he's in. So if he's in the UK and he says I owe 1,000 euros, that will not apply. And remember that if you have something that's mufassar and a statement that's nas, the mufassar will overwrite the nas. You give the preference to the mufassar only because that's obviously the more powerful and the more clear example. So now we can move on to the muhkam ones. So the muhkam is something whose clarity increases beyond the mufassir level, and there is absolutely no way it can be contradicted. So it is compulsory to act upon it without any doubt. That's the rule. And the opposite of muhkam will be mutashabih. So now we'll have a look at the example. Inna Allaha bi kulli shay'in alim. So the example is actually on page 57 again. Undoubtedly, Allah has knowledge over everything. So you cannot deny the attribute of ilm or even limit it to Allah Azza wa Jal. And also the statement, so inna Allah la yazlimu nasa shay'an, Allah Azza wa Jal does not absolutely oppress people in the least. Okay, so you cannot deny the knowledge of Allah and its vastness. And he also does not oppress anyone in the least way. That's why you also get from that same example. So the next example is slightly longer, but I think it's better. So when he says, undoubtedly I owe a certain person 1,000 in lieu of this price of this slave. Okay, so this is clear on the fact that he owns 1,000. So Zahir on the fact that he owes 1,000, but it is muhkam because he owes it for the slave. So it is absolutely clear that he actually owns. He will owe 1,000 pounds for the slave. Now, if he doesn't own the slave, if he doesn't end up buying the slave, then he doesn't owe 1,000. If we said that I owe 1,000 and that's it, we would assume that he does. But because he said for the slave, now in the case he doesn't buy a slave, then obviously he will not have to pay 1,000 pounds at all. Okay, so the examples for Khafi actually start on page 59. So before that, we go to the definition and the rule first. So Khafi is a word whose meaning is obscure due to external factors and not because of the word itself. A word whose meaning is obscured because of external factors and not because of the word itself. So this is the least level of confusion, of unclarity that you can have. And it is opposite to Zahir. Now the rule for this is that you investigate until the obscurity is removed. And this is actually the same for everyone except Mutashabih. You just investigate till the obscurity is removed. Okay, so Khafi is opposite to Zahir. And the example starts on page 59. It's about stealing, so I'll just write what's about stealing. So it says, وَالسَّارِقَةُ فَاقْطَعُوا أَيْدِيَهُمَا. And the thief cut both of their hands. So the male and female thief cut their hands. So it is Zahir on the punishment being the cutting. So it is some kind of a clear statement, but the statement is also Khafi. It's obscure with regards to the, okay, so Tarrar and Nabash. So Tarrar is the pickpocketer, the one who pickpockets. I don't know if in English pickpocketer is a word, but I'll write it anyway. So in regards to the pickpocketer and in regards to the grave thief. So Nabash is someone who steals graves, so grave thief. Okay, so this is how this example plays out as Khafi. It's clear on one side, but also unclear on the other side. So the second example is Az-zaniyatu waz-zani. So our statement Az-zani and Az-zaniyatu. So that's also on page 59 about the zanis. So the statement is Zahir on fornication and adultery, but it's Khafi. So it's unclear with regards to sodomy. And it is taking an oath that one will not eat fruits anymore. Okay, ولو حلف لا يأكل فاكهة كان ظاهرا فيما يتفكه به خفيا في حق العنب والرمان. So if a person takes an oath that he will not eat fruit, yeah, for some reason I was thinking about apples, but no. So he takes an oath that he will not eat fruit. So it is Zahir on fruits eaten on their own. Eaten as a side, the book says as a side or as afters or afters. Basically on their own, but it's Khafi on the issue of grapes, of renable, of grapes and pomegranates. So Rumman is pomegranates. So the reason why that is the case is because pomegranates and grapes, they can be eaten as part of the dish. So then it wouldn't be a standalone fruit. So then can you eat that? That's a bit obscure. So we're now gonna be moving on to Mushkil. So let's remember that Mushkil is again a statement that is unclear, but it's more unclear than a Khafi and less unclear than a Mujmal. Okay, so the opposite of Mushkil is the Nass statement. So the definition of Mushkil is exceeds Khafi, something that exceeds Khafi, something that exceeds the Khafi statement in its unclarity, so in obscurity. In obscurity, the intended meaning is unclear if it resembles other words similar to it. Such that its implication cannot be ascertained except by consideration. Okay, basically, okay, it exceeds Khafi in obscurity and can mean and can include similar things. So what I mean by similar thing is that you're saying something and it seems like it's clear and it can be understood, but then other things can also fall into that category. So then you're like, okay, so would that thing also be included in there? So you can't distinguish if you can include it in there or if you cannot. So that's what Mushkil is. The example of Mushkil is if a person takes an oath that he will not eat idam. Idam is basically condiment. So taking an oath, I will never eat condiment. Okay, so that's Tahir in regards to, not Tahir, Zahir. So is Zahir for vinegar, because vinegar is a common condiment. If you say condiment, vinegar would probably be one that people might think about. But then it's unclear with regards to, so it's Mushkil on meat, eggs, and cheese. So it's unclear on things like meat, cheese, and eggs because they are condiments, and in fact they are included in that category. Like you can have meat, eggs, and cheese as a side. In fact, that's something the Italians do. That they always have these as a side thing. So would that be included in the meaning? We don't know, to be honest. And the only way to find out is, in fact, to investigate until the obscurity is removed. And that's it. That's actually the only example given for Mushkil. Okay, now we have Mujmal and Mutashabih. So the definition of Mujmal is something that is above Mushkil in obscurity, obviously, and has multiple meanings, and to understand you must specify. So I know Mushkil also had multiple meanings, but here the meanings were similar, like they were all part of whatever he was on about. But here it has multiple different meanings, and to actually figure out which one it meant, you do have to specify things. So for example, when we did the example of wipe over your head, that one could mean a half of your head, a quarter, a third, so that one had to be specified. So, and to understand these things, you must specify. Like there's no way you can understand them without specifying, so must be clarified. So the rule is that we believe what is meant by it being true. So we believe what's meant as true until an explanation comes. Now the explanation for Mujmal will probably be there, but for mutashabih, there is actually no explanation. So the rule is the same as mujmal. So for this one, it's the same. Okay, mujmal is the opposite to mufassar, and then mutashabih is going to be opposite to muhkam. At least these two are finished. So the example is, okay, the sentence is found in page 60 again. So page 60, haram al-riba. So riba is forbidden. Now, without having any preconceptions of what riba is, riba literally means any excess. But does the riba here really mean excess? No, it doesn't. That's not the meaning that is implied. The meaning that is implied here is interest. So selling an equal amount of quantities on both sides. So interest is what you meant. So the idea that riba is interest in this verse is actually coming from hadith and stuff. So that would be that one. Okay, I hope I said this clearly. I'm getting tired. Okay, inshallah ta'ala, just one more example from mutashabih. So the rule is the same. The definition of mutashabih is more obscure and unclear. So the examples of this would be the huruf muqatti'at, words like alif lam mim, alif lam ra, all of these things. We don't really know the meanings of this, and Allah Azza wa Jalla hasn't told us what they mean either. Therefore, what we do is that we believe in them, whatever they mean, we agree with it, we believe them to be true. And unless someone tells us what they mean, we won't try to give our own explanations and definitions. And that's it. So this is all of it in reality. So the difference between Zahir and Nass, because they do seem quite similar, is actually understood when they contradict each other. So preference will always be given to the clearer statement. So it will always be Nass, basically. If you have a Zahir and Nass contradicting, the one that will win over is always Nass. So for example, in this part of the text, we're saying give yourself a divorce, and she says I have separated myself. Now the word separation, we know that in theory they give talaq bain. Now the person he said to give a divorce. A divorce, one talaq is zahir on talaq raj'i. So when she says, no, it's not zahir on talaq raj'i. It's nas on talaq raj'i, because I mean when he says talaq, he is not specifying which talaq, but it's meant. What's meant is talaq raj'i. So it's nas on talaq raj'i. But when she says I have separated myself, that's just a zahir sentence to mean I wanna be divorced from you. So because nas overpowers the zahir, that will be taken. So the apparent clear meaning is that separation, which involves a talaq bain. However, the main purpose of this speech was to give a divorce, and the default divorce is raj'i. Therefore, raj'i will be issued because nas is always preferred.
Time has come. You must continue your journey without me.
What are you? What?